Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, please subscribe. I'd really love that if you're returning. How you doing? All right, grab your coffee. You're gonna need, I'm serious when I tell you, a shot of bourbon, something, all right? Because what I'm about to tell you, all right, it is, this is gonna go down in the history books, but still. This happens to deal with the UK, all right, because this was sent to me by a subscriber who lives in the UK, and I talk to her quite often, all right. And no, it's not my favorite gal pal, all right. I love you. So this is somebody else, all right, and we exchange emails all the time, and she's a sweetheart. I love her. This happens to you want to talk about putting the fear of God into people, all right? So listen, 6 million homes could face power cuts this winter, okay, if the Russian standoff escalates. Ministers have warned this, all right? Now, the grim picture that's being painted here in a reasonable worst-case scenario, I know, prepared for the government, and it predicts major gas shortages at the turn of the year if Russia cuts off more supplies to the EU, which, with plans drawn up to ration electricity if the situation deteriorates. Now, according to the details seen by the Times, limits could need to be imposed on industrial use of gas, including on gas-fired power stations. And the threat has prompted Business Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng, I hope I said that right, to ask Britain's coal-fired power stations to delay their planned closures. And a business department spokesman insisted that the UK has no issues with either gas or electricity supply, and the government is fully prepared for any scenario, even those that are extreme and very unlikely to pass. Now, although the UK uses very little oil or gas from Russia, it would be left scrambling for supplies against other European countries if Putin turned off the taps. All right. So, but, these ministers, they have apparently been told that 6 million homes could lose electricity, rationed in curves that may last for more than a month. All right. So, for those of you that are my subscribers in the UK and abroad, prepare for this now. Even though I feel that this is fear-mongering, you don't know what these bastards, what they could be up to. Okay. So just prepare now. Okay, I'm just saying. All right, so now on to this. You feel like it keeps going and going and going, and it's never going to stop. And you just feel like, whoa, God, can we just get a break, please? But we're never going to catch a break. We're never going to catch a break. We're not. I'm sorry. But, So, on to this. The world's biggest nation is about to shrink. China accounts for more than 1/6 of the world's population. Yet, after 4 extraordinary decades in which China's population has swelled from 660 million to 1.4 billion, its population is on track to turn down this year for the first time since the Great Famine of 1959 to 1961. And according to the latest figures from China's National Bureau of Statistics, China's population grew from 1.41212 billion to just 1.41260 billion in 2021. I know the numbers, it's like it scrambles your brain. A record low increase of just about 480,000, which is a mere fraction of annual growth of 8 million or so common a decade ago. Okay. Now, while a reluctance to have children in the face of strict Rona measures and things like this might have contributed to the slowdown of births, it has been coming for years. Now, if you remember, I'm going back now. Okay, I'm going back. Remember what they did? That, you know, if your firstborn child was a girl, what they did, those horrific measures that they made you take. Okay? I'll never forget a story that my parents had told me, because when 9/11 happened, my parents were in China. Okay? My parents used to travel all over the world, and my parents were in China when 9/11 happened. And I'll never forget that day when they called me. And they were on a tour bus or something like that, and my parents called from their cell phone. And they said they've been trying to call for hours. What's going on? What's going on? And I said, Daddy, you know, we're under attack. And he said, we're stuck on a bus. And I said, what do you mean you're stuck on a bus? He goes, we're stuck on a tour bus. He goes, Mommy's really upset. And he said, and they won't let us off the bus. I said, well, what's going on over there? What are they telling you? He said, nothing. They're not telling us anything. And where they were, it was like highly populated with Americans. And my mother had said, she said, Gypsy, she said, you wouldn't believe the amount of American women that are walking around with Chinese baby girls. And I said, what are you talking about? And she said, American families come over here and they adopt little girls, because if a woman gives birth and their firstborn child is a little girl, they have to get rid of it. What? That's insane. Who the hell does this government think they are? Okay, first of all, to tell you that if your firstborn child is a little girl, that you must get rid of it. I would tell them to pound sand where the friggin' sun don't shine, okay? Every life is precious. What's wrong with you? So, going back, my parents come home, and they weren't allowed to leave. They had to stay like an extra week or something like that after 9/11, because, you know, the flights, everything was canceled. They couldn't come home, you know, stuff like that. So my father and mother, they wanted to go back because my mother wanted to go back and adopt. Now, keep in mind, you know, I mean, this is 2001, and, you know, I'm already, you know, I'm the youngest, and I'm already, you know, in my 20s. I already have a child. You know, Andrew was already born. He was 3 years old, you know, that type of thing. And because I was, what, 25. So, you know, I was like, Mom, you're going to adopt. You know, I was just like, holy cow. You know, she said, no, you don't believe, you wouldn't understand. She said, the women over there, they're in their 50s or 60s and they're adopting. And I said, wow, you know. So she said, yeah. She said, she said, you wouldn't believe that this is their protocol, that if your firstborn child is a daughter, you have to get rid of it. And I said, Jesus. She said, you know, it's common practice there. And I said, well, it's disgusting. So anyway, they didn't go back, but a friend of mine, one of my best friends from childhood, she ended up going there, her and her husband, and adopting a little girl. And she's, you know, oh my God, how old is Hannah? She's got to be 17, 18 now, Hannah. But, you know, this is just, you know, it's absurd. It's absolutely 100% absurd. So anyway, China's total fertility rate, births per woman, it was 2.6 in the late 80s, well above the 2.1 needed to replace deaths. It has been between 1.6 and 1.7 since 94 and slipped to 1.3 in 2020. And just 1.15 in 2021. By way of comparison, in Australia and the United States, the total fertility rate is 1.6 births per woman. In aging Japan, it is 1.3. And this has happened despite China abandoning its one-child policy, which is what I was just talking about. Literally, I mean, they literally had a one-child policy, and if it was a girl, nope, get rid of it. And I'm not talking about aborting, I'm talking about give it up for adoption or literally abandoning the child. And they don't have, the bring it to a fire station, bring it to a police station or hospital to, give your child up. Nay, nay. Literally on the street, gone. And because my mother had told me the horror stories of what she saw literally on the street. Okay, and I'm not going to get into that because it pisses me off. So, and the one-child policy in 2016 and introducing a three-child policy backed by tax and other incentives last year. Now, theories differ about why Chinese women remain reluctant to have children in the face of state incentives. I can only imagine because I'm sure that they're afraid of, they could probably retract, because tell me what government has not retracted after incentives, okay? So one involves having become used to small families. Another involves the rising cost of living. Another involves increasing marriage age, which delay births and dampens the desire to have children. Now, in addition, China has fewer women of childbearing age than might be expected, limited to having only one child since 1980. Many couples opted for a boy, lifting the at-birth ratio from 106 boys to every 100 girls, the ratio in most of the rest of the world to 120, in some provinces, 130. Now, shrinking on reasonable assumptions. China's total population grew by a post-famine low of just 0.34 in 1,000 last year, and projections prepared by a team at the Shanghai Academy of Social Sciences have it falling this year for the first time post-famine by 0.49 in 1,000. And the turning point has become a decade sooner than expected. As recently as 2019, though, the China Academy of Social Sciences expected the population to peak at 2029 at 1.44 billion. Now, the 2019 United Nations Population Prospects reported expected the peak later still in 2031 and 2032 at 1.46 billion. And the Shanghai Academy of Social Sciences team predict an annual average decline of 1.1% after 2021, pushing China's population down to 587 million in 2100, less than half of what it is today. And the reasonable assumptions behind that prediction are that China's total fertility rate slips from 1.15 to 1.1 between now and 2030. Here it is, that 2030. It's like Agenda 2030, okay, and remains there until 2100. So the rapid decline will have a profound impact on China's economy, okay, and China's working age population peaked in 2014 and is projected to shrink to less than 1/3, and that peak by 2100. Now, China's elderly population, which is 65 and above, okay, is expected to continue to climb for most of that time, passing China's working age population near 2080. Now, this means that there are currently 100 working age people available to support every 20 elderly people by 2100. 100 working age Chinese will have to support as many as 120 elderly Chinese. Now, the annual average decline of 1.73% in China's working age population sets the scene for much lower economic growth unless productivity advances rapidly. and higher labor costs driven by the rapidly shrinking labor force are set to push lower margin, labor-intensive manufacturing out of China to labor-abundant countries like Vietnam, Bangladesh, and India. Already manufacturing labor costs in China are twice as high as in Vietnam. Now, at the same time, China will be required to direct more of its productive resources to provision of health, medical, and aged care services to meet the demands of an increasingly elderly population. Modeling by the Center of Policy Studies at Victoria University suggests that without changes to China's pension system, its pension payments will grow fivefold from 4% of GDP in 2020 to 20% of GDP in 2100. So, for resource exporting nations such as Australia, these exchanges are likely to require a reorientation of exports toward manufacturers outside of China. So for importers of goods, including the United States, the source of goods is set to gradually shift towards new and emerging centers of manufacturing. Despite forecasts, this will be the Chinese century. These population projects suggest influence might move elsewhere, including the neighboring India, whose population is expected to overtake China within this coming decade. So, I know. It's, it's insane. It's insane. So now on to this. A subscriber said, I was able to buy a food saver at a yard sale for $10 a couple of years ago. Well, that's nice. Food savers can be quite expensive. She said, I decided to take the already shredded cheese and vacuum seal it. I do the same thing. I do it by 2 cups for each vacuum sealer bag. And she said, and I turned it into a flat blob. Yeah, I know, like me too. So I didn't do it again. I finally got around to using one of them the other day for enchiladas. I figured I could just reshred it if I needed to. And it was still a little frozen. I was pleasantly surprised to find out that if I use my fingers to break it apart, it's still shredded. Yes, that's so very true. And she said, I just wanted to share, if anyone has never tried it, it's still a good accident that it worked out and it takes up less space in the freezer. Yeah, that's so true. I do that all the time with my shredded cheddar, my shredded mozzarella and stuff like that. And I do it all the time. And it still comes out perfect. So now on to this. A subscriber says she has been prepping very, very hard and only stayed in September of last year. I learned to pressure and water bath can, and she learned how to bake bread. She's learning how to garden and just planted her first sweet potato slips in grow bags. And yesterday she pickled and steam canned peppers and onions. She said, let's remember to can some fun and healthy foods. Pickling gives prebiotics. Awesome. And then on to this. A subscriber sent me this and she said, my husband just sent this to me. I was shocked. I know prices are going up, but this price for 6 pounds of meat, ridiculous. Whoa, $117. And before I go, look at this. She said, my husband used to work overnights at a retail store and saw this. We're in North Texas. And he said, while shopping during the day, that it feels like he's stocking overnights. Walmart reducing lights by 50%. Huh. That's interesting. And no, it's not like the light bulbs are burning out. No, they turned the lights out and only put a few on. Here, there, here, there, here, there, here, there. Check out these pictures. All right, guys, I'm out of here. I love you. I'll see you in the next one. You stay safe, you stay positive, you keep prepping. And as always, fearless. Ciao.